Ondo Crypto Price Prediction News. Is 10 times still realistic?
Ondo Crypto was one of the most anticipated altcoins of this cycle. Many believed it would lead the real-world asset revolution, a trend embraced by both Wall Street and the crypto industry. But then the opposite happened. While the project was constantly publishing positive news, Ondo price dropped more than 80% from its peak. So is the market missing a big opportunity, or is Ondo simply being priced right at its true value? More importantly, is the 10 times growth target from here realistic, or is it just the overly optimistic expectations of investors? Today we're going beyond the price chart. We'll analyze capital flows, whale activity, and how institutional investors are positioning themselves around Ondo. If you have or are interested in this project, this is exactly the video for you. Don't take your eyes off the screen, because Crypto Radar is breaking it all down for you. Let's get started. Crypto Radar. Imagine one day the entire US stock and bond market is put on the blockchain. A restructuring of the global financial system is happening right before our eyes. And in that intense race to tokenize assets, Ondo Finance is emerging as one of the most notable names. What matters isn't that Ondo is another hype token. The real story is that it's competing in the same arena as institutions like BlackRock, JP Morgan, Franklin Templeton, and Fidelity. They're all working toward the same goal, bringing traditional financial assets onto the blockchain. If that becomes a reality, blockchain will no longer be just a place to trade Bitcoin or altcoins, but could become the new infrastructure of the global financial system. And that is why Ondo is increasingly attracting attention. But Ondo isn't just about vision. Ondo also builds products with real-world utility of US stocks and ETFs in the form of tokens right on the blockchain. More importantly, these assets are no longer limited by the trading hours of the stock market. Instead of having to wait for Wall Street to open, investors can trade almost 24/7 with significantly faster processing speeds. That's the core value of tokenization. Not creating a new asset class, but making assets that have been around for decades more efficient. Ondo's ambitions are not limited to tokenizing stocks. The project also develops products related to US Treasury bonds, yield stablecoins, and gradually builds a financial infrastructure for traditional institutions. In other words, Ondo's goal is to become one of the platforms that bridge Wall Street and blockchain. As a result, Ondo Coin is constantly appearing in many pilot programs with major financial institutions. As projects like Ripple and Chainlink work with financial institutions to test tokenized asset transfers, Ondo is also becoming one of the key players in this transformation. If you're interested in Ripple or other altcoins, you can check out the videos I've made on the Crypto Radar channel, where I cover a wide range of projects to help you better understand their potential. In addition, Ondo's approach to building regulatory infrastructure alongside its products is another key strength worth highlighting. Instead of focusing solely on technology first and dealing with regulatory challenges later, as many crypto projects have done, Ondo has taken the opposite approach by working directly with regulators from the very beginning. Its acquisition of Oasis Pro, an SEC licensed trading platform in the United States, is the clearest example of this strategy. As a result, Ondo Global Markets is positioned to operate within the existing regulatory framework rather than remaining in the legal gray area where most tokenization platforms currently exist. This is a very remarkable advantage. In the crypto market, good technology is not enough to work with financial institutions. What they need is reliability, the ability to meet regulations, and the ability to implement products in practice. And at least at the moment, Ondo is gradually proving itself to possess all three of those factors. This is also the reason many people rate Ondo as one of the strongest projects in the field of RWA Crypto. However, this is also the biggest paradox of the project. While the ecosystem and partnerships are constantly expanding, the Ondo token price has sharp decline. So why has the token underperformed despite all this progress? We will analyze it in the next section. There are three main reasons behind Ondo's price decline. The first is the broader crypto market cycle. Even though Ondo is focused on real-world assets and is building infrastructure for traditional finance, it's still an altcoin. That means its price remains heavily influenced by Bitcoin and overall market liquidity. History has shown that whenever liquidity leaves the crypto market, most altcoins experience sharp corrections regardless of how strong their fundamentals are. Ondo is no exception. During bearish market conditions, investors tend to treat altcoins as a single high-risk asset class rather than valuing each project based on its intrinsic fundamentals. As a result, even though Ondo has continued expanding its product suite and securing major strategic partnerships, those positive developments haven't been enough to push the token against the broader market trend. The second reason comes down to tokenomics. Ondo still has a significant amount of tokens scheduled to unlock over the coming years. As the circulating supply increases, the market will need a substantial amount of new capital to absorb those additional tokens. If demand fails to keep pace with the unlock schedule, dilution pressure is inevitable, making price corrections difficult to avoid. That said, it's important to look at this issue from a balanced perspective. Not every token unlock automatically creates direct selling pressure. Based on Ondo's token distribution model, a large portion of newly unlocked tokens is allocated toward ecosystem growth, including protocol incentives and business expansion. Meanwhile, the allocation for early private investors and venture funds has already declined significantly compared to the project's early stages. This doesn't eliminate supply pressure, but it does suggest that Ondo's unlocks are increasingly designed to support ecosystem growth rather than simply allowing early investors to take profits. The final reason, and in my opinion, the most important one, is Ondo's value capture mechanism. Today, Ondo Finance is growing rapidly as a platform. Its total value locked continues to rise, the range of tokenized assets keeps expanding, and new products are consistently being launched. However, most of the value generated by the ecosystem is not yet flowing directly back to the Ondo token. In other words, the platform is growing faster than the token's ability to capture that value. That's why many investors believe Ondo is still missing its final piece of the puzzle. For anyone looking for an Ondo Crypto Explained perspective, this is probably the single most important concept to understand. The biggest challenge isn't platform growth, it's how much of that growth actually flows back to the Ondo token. If the project eventually introduces stronger mechanisms that allow the token to directly benefit from the platform's expanding ecosystem, the market's valuation of Ondo could change dramatically. Looking at the bigger picture, this Ondo crypto analysis suggests that Ondo's 80% plus drawdown doesn't necessarily indicate a failing project. Instead, it reflects a combination of the broader market cycle, tokenomics-related supply pressure, and a token that has yet to fully capture the value being created by its ecosystem. The more important question is no longer why Ondo has fallen so much or what the next Ondo price prediction is. The real question is this: if these challenges are gradually resolved during the next market cycle, does Ondo have what it takes to deliver another multi-X move from today's price levels? A 10-time scenario for Ondo is absolutely possible. However, it won't happen simply because of a product update or a short-term piece of positive news. In my view, three key conditions need to come together for Ondo to truly enter a multifold growth cycle. This is why any realistic Ondo coin price prediction should be based on fundamentals rather than short-term hype. The first condition is that tokenization must become a mainstream trend in global finance over the coming years. Looking at what's happening today, this is no longer just a crypto narrative. More and more major financial institutions are joining the race to tokenize real-world assets. BlackRock continues to expand its tokenized investment funds. Franklin Templeton taps Ondo Finance to tokenize 5 equities and gold ETFs. Even market infrastructure giants like DTCC, Nasdaq, and the New York Stock Exchange are actively testing blockchain-based trading and settlement systems. All of this suggests that tokenization is gradually becoming a Wall Street trend rather than just an experimental concept. If you've been following Ondo Finance news today, you'll notice that Ondo continues positioning itself at the center of this institutional shift. The forecasts support this view as well. Citigroup estimates that the tokenized asset market could reach approximately $5.5 trillion by 2030 under its base case scenario and as much as $8.2 trillion under its bullish scenario. More importantly, the report suggests that most of this growth will come from US equities and US treasuries, the two asset classes that Ondo is specifically building around. However, a massive market doesn't guarantee that every project will succeed. That's why the second condition is just as important. Ondo must continue maintaining its leadership position in the real-world assets sector. History has shown that in every major technological trend, most of the value is captured by the market leaders. The rise of the internet didn't make every internet company become Amazon. The AI boom hasn't made every AI token a long-term winner either. Ultimately, what matters most is who captures market share. So far, Ondo has been executing well. According to recent data, the total value of tokenized assets on Ondo has surpassed $3.68 billion, making it one of the fastest growing platforms in the RWA sector. The project continues expanding its offerings with hundreds of US stocks and ETFs while adding more tokenized US Treasury products. Beyond that, Ondo is also developing Ondo Chain, a blockchain specifically designed for financial institutions with a strong focus on regulatory compliance. If Ondo Finance succeeds in attracting institutional adoption, Ondo will no longer be just another DeFi protocol. It could become part of the core infrastructure powering on-chain finance. That's why I believe Ondo's ability to maintain its leadership in tokenization will be one of the biggest factors determining whether the project can continue scaling in the years ahead. But even if those first two conditions become reality, there is still one final piece that will determine whether the Ondo token itself can experience a major revaluation. That piece is whether the value created across the entire Ondo ecosystem can ultimately flow back into the Ondo token. This is also the issue that both investors and the community are watching most closely today. The market doesn't just want to see Ondo continue growing, it wants to understand how that growth benefits Ondo token holders. If over time the token plays a larger role in governance, network security, or incorporates stronger value accrual mechanisms, then the market's valuation of Ondo could change dramatically. In other words, the growth of the platform is a necessary condition, but the token's ability to capture that growth is the sufficient condition for Ondo to enter an entirely new valuation phase. So when I evaluate Ondo's upside potential, I don't focus solely on the price chart. What matters far more is whether these three pieces can come together to create a powerful growth engine for the project. If all three happen within the same market cycle, then the case for Ondo delivering multiple-fold returns becomes much stronger than simply hoping for another short-lived wave of FOMO. That's what separates a serious Ondo price prediction update from speculation driven purely by market sentiment. At that point, the market may no longer value Ondo as just another DeFi project. Instead, it could begin viewing it as one of the core infrastructure providers powering the future of tokenization. That said, this is still the most optimistic scenario. In reality, Ondo still faces a number of meaningful risks. Tokenization adoption could take longer than expected, regulatory developments in major markets could become less favorable, and traditional financial institutions may ultimately choose to build their own tokenization infrastructure. If that happens, Ondo's competitive edge could become increasingly limited. On top of that, the project's tokenomics and its ability to translate ecosystem growth into sustainable value for the Ondo token still need more time to prove themselves. And in an industry that moves as fast as crypto, falling behind by just a few steps can quickly allow competitors to close the gap. That's why when I look at Ondo, Crypto Radar don't see it as a can't-miss investment. Crypto Radar sees Ondo as a project with significant advantages in one of the biggest long-term trends in finance. However, it still has plenty of challenges to overcome before it can fully prove its long-term growth potential. If any one of these key pieces fails to develop as expected, Ondo's bullish thesis will become much harder to achieve. That's also why I believe the more important question isn't simply whether Ondo can 10 times. The real question is whether the team can continue executing on the vision they're building today. Because over the long run, it's the project's execution, not market hype, that ultimately determines the value of the token. The best crypto price prediction isn't based on wishful thinking. It's based on execution, adoption, and long-term fundamentals. So, what do you think? After everything we've covered today, do you believe Ondo still has significant upside left in this market cycle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Crypto Radar so you never miss our in-depth analyses of altcoins and the biggest trends shaping the crypto market. Please note that the content shared in this video is based on my own research and personal opinions and should not be considered financial or investment advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions and invest responsibly. Crypto Radar disclaims all responsibility related to the results of your transactions and your assets. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.